Welcome to this Actus Insight, how to design a continuous performance management process. Now, you may have heard lots about continuous performance management, but why is it so important? Well, there are many advantages of continuous performance management. Some of them are science-based. It's been proven that having clear goals coupled with regular feedback delivers high performance. Also, we're in a fast-moving world now. It's clear that no longer once or twice yearly conversations are going to work. Hybrid management, where people are working in different locations, means that it's important to have regular connection between an individual, their line manager, for people to feel engaged and to stay on track with priorities. There's also evidence that performance and development conversations, or certainly ratings, are more effective separately. And finally, it's clear that little and often conversations drive greater employee engagement and are more effective than a lengthy once-yearly meeting where people are going through the motions. So there are clear advantages, but how do you make this work? Well, at Actus, we've developed a simple way of breaking up a 3-hour epic appraisal that some people will remember the pain of into 4 quarterly check-ins. This structure is really practical and many of our clients use it with great success. Now, of course, the starting point at the start of usually your financial year, we have to set objectives. We want to make sure that those objectives are aligned with business requirement, and they are also aligned with individual requirements and priorities. So you agree your objectives at the start of the year, and quite often that's part of the same conversation that might have closed down last year's end-of-year appraisal. So let's assume that we're starting from scratch, and of course, if you want help in writing smart objectives, we have 2 specific Actus insights on that topic. So you've designed that, you can choose a timetable as to when your business year starts. And we're not saying that these are the only times that managers and employees should talk. You can see here we also recommend regular one-to-ones. But at the end of the first quarter, it makes an awful lot of sense to have a check-in or a one-to-one that's specifically talking about development. Now, this might seem different from what you're used to because traditional once-yearly appraisals talk about development at the end of the year. But if you think about it, that doesn't make logical sense because development, certainly when we're investing in training within a business, should be helping people to perform within that business year. So if we have that check-in at the end of the first quarter, we can find out if there are any development needs that individual has that are going to help them be successful within that year. That means we're delivering against them real time, particularly if you have a system like Actus that allows you to see those objectives and respond to them. Then the individual will understand the purpose of the training. So you're getting greater return on that training investment. So our first quarter, we're suggesting you reflect on the objectives and you put in aligned training if needed. Then if we go to our half-year point, again, this should be slightly more formally about performance. Is the person on track to meet their performance objectives? We don't want them to get to the end of the year and realise that they were way off track. And this is even more important if you're using something like ratings. If you are using performance ratings, and definitely if you are linking to reward, it's really, really important to have an idea at that mid-year point, is the person on track or not, and help them refocus. The other thing that you can use at the mid-year appraisal is this is a good time to perhaps expand on whether the individual has got the right competencies for the role or their behaviours or values. So if you want to talk about behaviours or values, the mid-year point provides the opportunity to talk about those slightly more extensively than if you do it at the end of the year. So we've completed our mid-year appraisal. What do we do as we get into the second half of the year? And remember, we are encouraging in-between check-ins and one-to-ones as you go. Well, month 9, or coming to the final quarter of the year, we would say that it's a great time to have a career conversation. Just think, this is when you know that certain people in your team are high performers. You want to keep them motivated to carry on performing through to the end of the year, and you want them to feel that they have a career within your organisation. They don't start looking outside. So what a great time to focus on career aspirations and maybe succession planning. Of course, you may still look at objectives or development if appropriate, but having these separate conversations brings them together really nicely. And then finally, we get through to the end of the year. What we want to have is a quality and engaging year-end appraisal. So because we've been talking to our people throughout the year, the conversation should be higher quality, but it's not overly elongated. This means we can focus on what that person's fully achieved and also the future. It makes it a simple and effective process. So let's sum this all up. If you want to put continuous performance management into place, think about what the timetable should be for your organisation and clearly define it. Now, some organisations, I'm thinking higher education, for example, 4 touch points might not fit. In your situation, maybe you want to go to 3 touch points that fit with terms. What you also need to do is make sure that you provide clear expectations around the purpose and the responsibilities of each of those meetings, so that the manager and the individual knows who's responsible for planning it and how they need to prepare. I'm imagining that you are an HR person listening to this, or someone who's responsible for rolling out continuous performance management. You must expect to plan reminders and follow-ups, particularly in year 1, because this is encouraging people to have new behaviours. And with that, when you're encouraging those people who are taking up the new behaviours, track and recognise those who are meeting that new timetable and getting on with it. And then finally, incentivise and reward the people who have the right behaviours, such as recognition and ensuring that they have prompt access to training. So I hope that gave you a brief understanding as how practically you could implement continuous performance management in your organisation. Remember, behavioural science really does suggest that it's better to separate objectives from development, particularly in the case with ratings. So this is something that makes sense from a science point of view as well as a practical point of view. Of course, if you'd like some help with this, please do consider getting in touch with us at Actus. We have extensive experience designing continuous performance management processes, and of course our software Actus is designed to do this.